My dear sisters, listen carefully. Manipulation does not begin when someone lies to you. It begins when you doubt your own worth. It begins when you fear losing people more than you fear losing Allah. And the moment a woman is disconnected from Allah, she becomes easy to pressure, easy to guilt, easy to control. But when Allah is her protector, manipulation stops working. Not because people suddenly become good, but because she becomes clear, calm, anchored, untouchable. Today I want to speak to the woman who is tired of being played, drained, and emotionally controlled. And I want to show you how Allah frees her. My dear sisters, understand this clearly and do not rush past it. A woman who does not know her value will slowly teach people how to mistreat her. Not because she wants to be hurt, but because she is afraid to be left, so she gives more than she has. She stays silent when something inside her is breaking. She tolerates words and behaviors that drain her heart, and she tells herself, "This is patience, this is saber." But that is not saber. That is losing yourself. True patience never requires you to erase your dignity. Allah did not create you to be stepped on, emotionally drained, or constantly proving your worth to others. When patience turns into constant self-neglect, when kindness turns into self-betrayal, something is wrong. Islam never taught us to accept humiliation in the name of goodness. The Prophet ﷺ was gentle, but he was never weak. He was kind, but he never allowed oppression. And you, as a believing woman, are not meant to live smaller than the guidance Allah gave you. When Allah protects a woman, the first thing He heals is how she sees herself. He restores her sense of worth from the inside out. She stops measuring herself by how needed she is, how chosen she is, or how much attention she receives. She no longer asks, "Am I enough for them?" She starts asking, "Am I sincere with Allah?" That shift alone changes everything. Because once your value is rooted in your relationship with Allah, people lose the power to shake you. A woman who knows her value does not beg for basic respect. She does not explain why she deserves kindness. She does not accept emotional crumbs and call it love. She understands that her worth was given to her the moment Allah created her, honored her, and made her accountable to Him. She is valuable because she is a servant of Allah, not because someone chooses her, praises her, or keeps her around. Manipulation only works when someone believes they are replaceable. When a woman believes she can be easily discarded, she tolerates what she should never accept. She stays quiet because she fears being left. She agrees when her heart is screaming no. But when a woman knows Allah, she understands that provision, companionship, and honor all come from Him. No human being controls her future. No relationship defines her value. And because of that, manipulation loses its foundation. This does not make her harsh. It makes her clear. It does not make her arrogant. It makes her grounded. She still has mercy, but she also has limits. She still loves, but she does not lose herself. She gives, but not at the cost of her soul. And people feel that. They sense that she is not desperate, not cheap, not available to be emotionally used. My sisters, knowing your value is not about ego, it is about alignment. When you see yourself the way Allah sees you, protected, honored, accountable, and worthy, you stop shrinking to keep others comfortable. And that is when Allah's protection becomes visible in your life. My dear sisters, manipulation feeds on one thing more than anything else, and that is fear. Not fear of danger, but fear of loss. Fear of being abandoned, fear of being alone, fear of conflict, fear of disappointing people, fear of being misunderstood. When these fears sit in the heart, a woman becomes easy to control. Not because she is weak, but because she cares deeply and does not want to lose connection. Shaitan knows this, and people who manipulate, knowingly or unknowingly, use this fear to their advantage. A woman afraid of losing people will silence her pain. She will agree when she wants to refuse. She will tolerate behavior that exhausts her soul just to keep peace. She will accept blame that is not hers because she is terrified of confrontation. And slowly, fear trains her to abandon herself. She tells herself, if I speak up, I might lose them. If I say no, they might leave. If I set boundaries, I will be alone. So she stays quiet and manipulation continues. But faith works in the opposite direction. Faith removes fear by reminding the heart who is truly in control. When a woman believes deeply that Allah is Al-Wakil, the one who takes care of her affairs, fear begins to loosen its grip. She understands that no human being is her provider, no person is her protector, no relationship is her source of safety. Allah alone holds her life, her future, and her sustenance. And when this belief becomes real, not just spoken, manipulation starts to collapse. A woman who trusts Allah does not make decisions from panic. She does not cling to people who harm her just to avoid loneliness. She understands that being alone with Allah is safer than being surrounded by people who drain her Iman and dignity. She realizes that losing the wrong people is not a loss at all. Sometimes it is Allah's mercy. Sometimes it is His protection unfolding quietly. Fear makes you rush. Faith makes you steady. Fear makes you over-explain. Faith makes you silent when silence is wiser. Fear makes you tolerate disrespect. Faith reminds you that Allah never honors humiliation. When a woman replaces fear with tawakkul, she no longer reacts emotionally to pressure. She pauses, she reflects, she chooses with clarity. And this calm confidence confuses manipulators because their tools no longer work. My sisters, understand this clearly. You do not need to be fearless to be protected. You need to know where to place your fear. When a woman fears Allah more than she fears people, she becomes free. Free from guilt tripping, free from emotional threats, free from control disguised as care. Because the woman who trusts Allah knows that even if everyone leaves, Allah remains. And the heart that knows this cannot be controlled. My dear sisters, many women are manipulated not because they are weak, but because they were never taught that boundaries are allowed. They were taught to be nice at all costs, to be patient even when it hurts, to stay quiet so they don't upset anyone. Somewhere along the way, kindness was confused with self-sacrifice, and gentleness was mistaken for silence in the face of harm. This is not what Islam teaches. Boundaries are not arrogance, boundaries are not cruelty, boundaries are not a lack of compassion, boundaries are clarity. And clarity is an act of Iman. Allah is clear in His commands. Halal is clear. Haram is clear. Limits exist because protection exists. In the same way, when a woman sets boundaries, she is not pushing people away. She is protecting what Allah entrusted to her, her heart, her dignity, and her emotional well-being. A woman without boundaries is accessible to everyone, and that is dangerous. People begin to assume they can speak however they want, demand whenever they want, and cross limits without consequence. Over time, this drains her. She becomes resentful, exhausted, and spiritually heavy. But instead of correcting the situation, she blames herself. She says, maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I should be more patient. No, my sisters. Sometimes the problem is not your sensitivity, it is the absence of limits. When Allah protects a woman, He teaches her when to say no without guilt. He teaches her that she does not need to explain every decision. She does not need to justify her boundaries to people who already benefit from her lack of them. Manipulators depend on access. They need emotional availability, constant responsiveness, and endless explanations. Boundaries quietly remove that access, and suddenly their influence disappears. Notice something important. A woman who sets boundaries does not argue, she does not raise her voice, she does not threaten, she simply changes her behavior. She limits availability, she withdraws engagement, she stops responding to disrespect. This is powerful, not loud power, but dignified power. And Allah loves dignity. Some women fear that boundaries will make people leave, and sometimes they will. But ask yourself honestly, were they there for you, or were they there for what you provided? Allah removes people who only benefited from your lack of limits so that He can protect your heart. What leaves after boundaries was never meant to stay. My sisters, boundaries are not walls. They are doors that you choose when to open. And when those boundaries are set with sincerity and reliance on Allah, they become a form of worship. Because the woman who protects what Allah has entrusted to her is a woman under Allah's protection. One of the quiet reasons many women are manipulated is emotional dependence. Not love, not compassion, but dependence. When your emotional stability rises and falls based on how someone treats you, you have handed them power over your heart. Your mood, your peace, your confidence, even your Iman begin to depend on their words, their attention, their approval. This is exhausting and it is dangerous. Emotional dependence makes a woman vulnerable. She waits for messages to feel calm. She needs reassurance to feel secure. She feels anxious when someone pulls away and relieved when they return. Slowly, her inner world is no longer guided by Allah, but by people. And when someone realizes this, manipulation becomes easy. A little distance to trigger fear, a little affection to regain control. This cycle drains the soul. Islam does not teach emotional fragility. Islam teaches strength rooted in reliance on Allah. Emotional independence does not mean you stop caring. It means your peace is not hostage to people's behavior. A woman emotionally anchored in Allah can feel disappointment without collapsing. She can experience loss without losing herself. She can love deeply without becoming desperate. This balance is powerful. When Allah protects a woman, He shifts the center of her emotional world. Instead of people being the source of her comfort, Allah becomes that source. Salah becomes where she releases her burdens. Dua becomes where she feels heard. Dhikr becomes where her heart settles. Over time, she no longer needs constant reassurance from others because she is reassured by her connection with Allah. This is why emotionally independent women are difficult to manipulate. Guilt does not shake them easily. Silence does not panic them. Withdrawal does not break them. They pause, they reflect, and they respond with wisdom instead of fear. They do not rush to fix what Allah may be removing. They trust the process. Some women worry that emotional independence will make them cold. It does not. It makes them balanced. They still love, but they are not consumed. They still give, but they are not emptied. They still care, but they are not controlled. This is not hardness of the heart. This is maturity of the heart. My sisters, Allah never intended your emotional well-being to rest in the hands of people. When you place it with Him, you become steady. And the woman who is steady cannot be shaken, pressured, or played. This is strength. This is protection. This is freedom. One of the greatest misunderstandings many women carry is the belief that silence means weakness. They think that if they do not respond, explain, defend, or react, they are losing. But this is not always true. There is a silence that comes from fear, and there is a silence that comes from wisdom. The first drains you, the second protects you. Manipulation thrives on reaction. It needs emotion, it needs engagement. It needs you to defend yourself, to argue your intentions, to clarify your pain to someone who has already decided not to understand you. When you react impulsively, you give manipulators exactly what they want: access to your emotions. They twist your words, shift the blame, and exhaust you until you doubt yourself. This is how people keep control without ever raising their voice. But when Allah protects a woman, He teaches her the difference between speaking for truth and speaking for validation. She learns that not every accusation deserves a response. Not every misunderstanding needs correction. Not every lie needs to be chased. Sometimes silence is not surrender, it is strategy, it is restraint. It is trusting that Allah sees what you see and knows what you feel. The Prophet ﷺ did not respond to every insult. He did not defend himself against every falsehood. He chose his words with wisdom, and sometimes he chose silence. That silence was not fear, it was strength. It was confidence in Allah's justice. And when a woman follows this path, she protects her heart from unnecessary battles. A woman who has learned wise silence does not rush to explain herself to people who benefit from misunderstanding her. She does not beg to be seen correctly by those committed to seeing her wrongly. She understands that constant explaining weakens her position and drains her soul. Instead, she steps back. She limits conversation. She watches actions instead of words. This clarity is powerful. Silence also teaches you something important. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts, your emotions, or your story. Oversharing with the wrong people gives them tools to use against you. When a woman is protected by Allah, He teaches her discretion. She speaks to Allah before she speaks to people. She processes her pain in sujood before she processes it in conversation. This protects her from regret and emotional exposure. Some sisters fear that silence will make them invisible or misunderstood. But ask yourself honestly, has constant explaining brought you peace, or has it left you exhausted? Silence, when guided by wisdom, restores your energy. It returns you to yourself. It creates space for Allah to intervene in ways you cannot. My sisters, not every battle is meant to be fought with words. Some battles are won by stepping back, staying dignified, and trusting Allah's timing. The woman who knows when to be silent is not weak. She is guarded. And the heart that is guarded by wisdom is a heart Allah protects. My dear sisters, one of the most exhausting prisons a woman can live in is the constant need to prove herself, to prove that she is good enough, to prove that she is sincere, to prove that she meant well, to prove that she is loyal, patient, kind, forgiving, understanding. This need does not come from strength. It comes from insecurity. And insecurity is one of the main doors through which manipulation enters the heart. A woman who feels the need to prove herself will over-explain. She will replay conversations in her mind, wondering how she could have said things better. She will justify her pain to people who caused it. She will carry guilt that does not belong to her. She will stay in situations that hurt her just to show that she is not difficult or ungrateful. Slowly, her entire emotional energy is spent trying to be seen correctly by people who may never intend to see her correctly. Manipulators thrive on this. They question your intentions. They twist your words. They imply that you are the problem. And because you want to be understood, you keep explaining, you keep clarifying, you keep defending yourself. But the truth is painful. Someone who benefits from misunderstanding you has no interest in clarity. Your explanations do not free you, they trap you deeper. When Allah protects a woman, one of the greatest gifts He gives her is relief from this need. She realizes something liberating. Not everyone deserves an explanation, and not everyone will understand you, no matter how pure your intentions are. And that is okay. Your responsibility is not to be understood by creation. Your responsibility is to be sincere with the Creator. This shift is powerful. When a woman knows that Allah sees her heart, she no longer feels desperate to convince people of her goodness. She stops performing righteousness for approval. She stops exhausting herself trying to control how others perceive her. She understands that intentions are judged by Allah, not by people. And once this understanding settles in the heart, manipulation loses one of its strongest tools. A woman who no longer needs to prove herself becomes calm. She speaks when necessary and remains silent when it is wiser. She does not rush to correct every false assumption. She allows people to believe what they choose, knowing that Allah knows the truth. This does not make her careless. It makes her secure. Secure in her relationship with Allah, secure in her values, secure in her worth. Some sisters fear that if they stop explaining themselves, they will be misunderstood or misjudged. But ask yourself honestly, how many times did explaining actually protect you? How many times did it bring peace? Often it only brought more questions, more blame, and more emotional exhaustion. Allah does not ask you to carry the burden of people's perceptions. He asks you to carry sincerity, patience, and trust. When a woman stops proving herself, she also stops chasing validation. She no longer needs constant reassurance that she is doing the right thing. She checks her intentions with Allah, corrects herself privately, and moves forward. This inner confidence is deeply unsettling to manipulators. They can no longer use guilt. They can no longer imply that she owes them explanations. They can no longer shake her with accusations. This does not mean she becomes arrogant or dismissive. It means she becomes anchored. She listens when advice is sincere. She reflects when correction is fair. But she does not internalize every opinion. She does not bend herself into uncomfortable shapes just to be liked or accepted. She understands that being at peace with Allah is more important than being at peace with everyone. My dear sisters, there is great freedom in this lesson. The moment Allah removes the need to prove yourself, your heart becomes lighter, your decisions become clearer, your boundaries become firmer. You stop overthinking every interaction. You stop replaying conversations. You stop carrying guilt that was never yours. And in that freedom, Allah's protection becomes evident. A woman who no longer needs to prove herself is difficult to manipulate because she is no longer seeking approval. Her validation comes from Allah. Her worth is anchored in Iman. And the woman whose heart rests with Allah cannot be shaken by people's doubts, accusations, or games. My dear sisters, this is where everything comes together. When a woman is protected by Allah, her life does not suddenly become easy, but it becomes clear. She no longer walks through life confused about who she is, what she deserves, or what she should tolerate. She is not loud, she is not aggressive, she is not constantly asserting herself. Her strength is quieter than that. And that quiet strength is what makes her untouchable. Being untouchable does not mean people will never try to manipulate you. They will. It does not mean people will never test your boundaries. They will. But it means their tactics no longer work. Guilt does not hook you. Fear does not rush you. Emotional pressure does not bend you. Why? Because your heart is no longer exposed. It is shielded by your relationship with Allah. A woman protected by Allah does not move from desperation. She does not chase clarity from people who thrive on confusion. She does not beg for honesty from those committed to deception. She understands that Allah reveals what needs to be revealed in His time, not hers. This patience is not passive. It is deeply active trust. And trust in Allah creates a kind of inner stability that people immediately sense. You see, manipulators rely on emotional chaos. They rely on confusion, self-doubt, and urgency. They push you to react quickly. They create pressure so you do not have time to think. But the woman who walks with Allah moves slowly and deliberately. She pauses, she prays, she reflects. She does not give instant access to her emotions. And this calmness removes their leverage. When Allah becomes a woman's shield, her self-respect becomes visible. She does not need to announce it. It shows in how she responds, how she withdraws, how she chooses silence over explanation and distance over drama. She no longer tolerates disrespect, disguised as honesty, or control disguised as care. She trusts her intuition because it is aligned with her Iman. This woman also understands something important. Not everyone deserves proximity. Access to her heart, her time, and her energy is earned, not assumed. And when someone repeatedly crosses limits, she does not argue about it. She simply steps back. This stepping back is not punishment. It is protection. It is her way of saying, I value what Allah has entrusted to me. Being untouchable also means she is no longer easily provoked. Insults do not define her. Accusations do not consume her. Silence from others does not destabilize her. Praise does not inflate her ego. And criticism does not crush her spirit. Why? because her identity is no longer fragile. It is anchored in knowing who she is before Allah. My sisters, this level of strength is not built overnight. It is built in sujood. It is built in tears no one sees. It is built in moments when you choose Allah over people, dignity over comfort, and long-term peace over short-term relief. Every time you walk away from something that harms your Iman, Allah strengthens your shield. And here is the truth you must remember. A woman protected by Allah does not need to fight to be respected. Her presence carries boundaries. Her silence carries weight. Her decisions carry clarity. This is what it means to be untouchable. Not because you are unreachable, but because your heart is guarded by Allah. And no one can manipulate what Allah Himself is protecting. My dear sisters, understand this clearly and hold it close to your hearts. Protection does not come from being clever. It does not come from learning people's tactics. It does not come from hardening your heart or becoming cold. True protection comes from alignment with Allah. When your heart is connected to Him, everything else falls into its proper place. A woman protected by Allah does not need to announce her strength. She does not need to warn people. She does not need to prove anything. Her clarity speaks for her. Her boundaries speak for her. Her calm speaks for her. She knows when to step forward and when to step back. She knows when to speak and when to remain silent. And she trusts that Allah sees what others do not. If you have been manipulated, drained, or emotionally controlled in the past, do not carry shame. Those experiences were lessons, not labels. Allah uses hardship to refine, not to ruin. Each moment that taught you discernment, self-respect, and reliance on Him was a step toward protection. Nothing was wasted. My sisters, the goal is not to become untouchable by closing your heart to the world. The goal is to become untouchable by anchoring your heart in Allah. When He is your protector, you walk with dignity. You choose peace over chaos. You choose truth over approval. And you no longer fear losing people who were never meant to stay. May Allah protect your hearts, strengthen your Iman, and grant you the clarity that makes manipulation powerless. When Allah is your shield, you are not just safe, you are free.